I'm Lawrence Bull, this is Knockout Sports, and here's our UFC Fight Island recap. Today we'll be covering the biggest stories from UFC Fight Island, including Masvidal Usman, which had some impressive pay-per-view numbers and even crazier highlights. Whoa! Who doesn't love a good foot stomp? We'll also be looking at the late stoppage in Aldo vs Yan, the controversial decision in Volkanovski-Holloway rematch, and much more in the crazy world of UFC. Strap yourselves in, here we go. Please like and subscribe for future Knockout Sports videos. Before we get into the UFC 251 main card, we have to mention Jiri Prochazka. Not the exquisite Czech figure ice skating champion, but rather the Czech badass that produced Performance of the Night honors with a highlight reel knockout of Volkan Oezdemir. Jiri rocked Oezdemir with a head kick before putting him away with a vicious right hook, becoming the first man to stop Oezdemir. We would love to see Jiri face Anthony Smith next, who was last seen in action losing a few teeth to Glover Teixeira, but it would be a great bout in the light heavyweight division. Amanda Ribas effectively ended Paige Van Zandt's UFC career with a clinical armbar submission in the very first round. With the loss, Paige goes to 2-4 in the UFC, but she still holds the unofficial title of most viewed Instagram profile by the teenage boys demographic of the UFC. Paige might even be beaten in this department by Ribas soon as well though. Have a look at these photos and especially at creepy Dana White. With the end of her UFC contract, we expect Paige to go to either ONE or Bellator. That's if she continues to fight. She does make a lot of money from her Instagram paid posts. Who can forget this Reebok one, which was expertly roasted by Chris Weidman.
This amazing black and white Reebok combat line. So if you want any of this Reebok collection, please go to the link in the bio.
What next for Ribas? A rising star at 10-1 overall, 4-0 in the UFC. The sky is really the limit for her. Here at Knockout Sports, we'd love to see her face the karate hottie Michelle Waterson, although Waterson is on a 2-fight losing streak, so the UFC matchmakers may want to defer that matchup. Another option could be Carla Esparza, the last person to beat Waterson, and I think that would be a fight we could all look forward to see. Rose Namajunas got revenge in her rematch against Jessica Andrade with a split decision win, and she also took home the bragging rights for most badass woman with a haircut that screams out, "We don't care what gender you are, we will kick your ass." Well done to Thug Rose, who has to fight Weili Zhang next for the strawweight championship and a chance to win back her belt. Aldo Yan was an entertaining fight, with Yan finishing Aldo in the 5th round whilst ahead in all the judges' scorecards. A lot of people think it was a late stoppage. Be the judge yourselves and let us know in the comments.
Stop! He's already dead!
Following the fight, Henry Cejudo got in the action and he called Petr Yan a potato, which is quite a good roast. The King of Cringe then went on to call Volkanovski an overgrown midget, which honestly is pretty good again, and it is very hard to roast people when you're 5'3" and you used to appear in the wrestling movie Nacho Libre. In the Volkanovski-Holloway rematch, we had a split decision which some in the sports scene is controversial. It all came down to a fight of 2 halves with Max dominating the first 2 rounds and Volk taking the final 2. The 3rd round was decisive, with all 3 judges giving it to Volkanovski. We could actually see a trilogy fight between the two again, even with Volkanovski 2-0 up in the series. It's something that Uncle Dana is calling for. Masvidal Usman, the main event. Jorge stepped in late notice to replace Gilbert Burns, who unfortunately got a bit of old coronavirus. Props to Masvidal for taking the fight at late notice. He also stopped off and grabbed some pizza on his private jet in Rome, which was pretty badass. But also, it's pretty badass that Usman still took the fight. Well done to him for that. The fight drew 1.3 million pay-per-view numbers, which is insane numbers and puts them up in the top categories of pay-per-view in the history of UFC. As for the fight itself, apart from these highlights which I just cannot stop watching,
Oh my goodness.
Unreal. Apart from the first round where Jorge gave Usman a good run for his money and actually took the round in most people's eyes, Usman controlled the fight for the majority and took home a unanimous decision win. To wrap things up, we have some winners and losers from Fight Island. Of course, we actually have a loser who wasn't at Fight Island. Old Mike Perry joined Conor McGregor as the two people that have punched old men in the UFC, making UFC the clear leader in sports that have punched old men in the face.
Although the less said about Golden Boy MMA, the better.
On to other losers of UFC Fight Island, and our hearts were broken at Knockout Sports for Joe Benavidez. It was hard to watch Jiu-Jitsu lose his fourth shot at the title, fifth if you include his WEC loss to Dominic Cruz at bantamweight, although Figueiredo looked like an absolute beast and could be a stud at 125 and 135. Talking of 135, he was called out by former bantamweight champ Cody Garbrandt for a flyweight title shot. Cody came in hot with his tweak game during the UFC Fight Island 2. Our final loser is poor Kelvin Gastelum, who finds himself on an unfortunate 3-fight skid. Gastelum was supposed to fight Rob Whittaker for the middleweight title, which was called off the morning of the fight due to Rob suffering a serious hernia. Gastelum then lost a war against current champ Adesanya for the interim belt, and has lost against top competition in Till and Hermanson since then. We hope Kelvin can get back in the win column in his next fight. Speaking of Whittaker and Till, both came out as winners of UFC Fight Island in Knockout Sports' opinion. What a treat of a main event we were given to wrap up the events in Abu Dhabi. A striking chess match with Whittaker getting a nod thanks mainly to mixing up, showcasing his underrated wrestling skills.
Amazing work. Top right now. He wants this fight going. He's picked him up. That is really great time from Whittaker. Can you imagine if they look move from Robert Whittaker to hide that fight?
It is. Your winner by unanimous decision out of Sydney, Australia, Robert the Reaper Whittaker.
Calvin Kattar looks slick and improved, is standing as a contender to keep an eye on in the featherweight division with his unanimous decision win over Dan Ige in the main event UFC Fight Night 172. But there was a fighter on the preliminary card who is undoubtedly leaving UFC Fight Island with the biggest surge in stock. Khamzat Chimaev won by submission in round 2. Then just 10 days later, opening the main card at UFC Fight Night 174, won by TKO in the very first round. One to watch on for the future, and he really does have a big buzz around him at the minute. A shout out to Mr. Finland as well, not only for his win, but being a top human thinking of his opponent's well-being straight away. Always great to see the sportsmanship and respect in the sport. The Knockout Sports main winner of UFC Fight Island, drumroll please, in some Inception/M. Night Shyamalan twist, the winner is the UFC. That's right, and it's hard to dispute that. The pay-per-view buys for UFC 251 were insane, never mind how they pulled off a main event that was in jeopardy after Gilbert Burns tested positive for coronavirus. Even the fact the main itself was pretty boring at UFC 251, apart from the foot stomps of course, but people were not turned off at all. This was shown 2 weeks later when Whittaker vs. Till was trending number 2 on Twitter worldwide at one point. The UFC and fans of the UFC should be proud of how the company put together 4 events in 2 weeks with international fighters during a worldwide pandemic. The UFC is literally setting the standard of how sporting events worldwide can be coordinated and ran. If they could only just get members of the roster to stop punching old men in the face. But again, at least they aren't Golden Boy MMA.
Thank you so much for watching today. I've been Lawrence Bull, this has been Knockout Sports, and we just recapped UFC Fight Island.